Hello and welcome back to the M.a.N podcast, Muscles and Nonsense. My name is Thomas. Again, that is your introduction now. I have set on it and I'm not changing it. So if you dislike it, I'm sorry. I don't know if I am sorry.
You're not, mate. You're
Deal
not.
with it. So today I have Sam. And this is going to be a kind of cool story, I think, to introduce it and start it before I even let Sam talk. Me and Sam have been in each other's lives pretty much since day one. Sam's dad and my dad were very good friends. They worked together, I think, just before I was, maybe just after I was born. And I think you're a couple of years younger than me, Sam, so it will have been while you came along. Sam and I were kind of pals when we were little. Well, acquaintances. I would go over to his house, play with him, play with his toys, play with his big sister, and then I would leave. And then as life got on, I didn't go through with my dad as often to see Sam's dad. Didn't see Sam for years. My dad then once said to me, "Oh, have you seen this personal trainer from Dundee talking about his emotions and mental health and that?" And I was like, "Oh no, I've not seen it." And I looked it up and I was like, "Dad, that's your friend's son."
That is so.
I reached out to Sam. I reached out to Sam. We started speaking, and again, it's almost like it's one of those odd relationships where it's like we've always been pals and we've never not been, and it's just clicked back into place, which is it's lovely, and it's lovely to have relationships like that.
It's very awesome.
Yeah, and we've trained together a few times. I was going to call you a pocket rocket, but I knew you would just automatically assume I thought because you're short. But every time I've trained with Sam, he is as strong, if not stronger than me, on everything. And you're about 15 kilos lighter than me, maybe?
Well, I was 77 this morning.
I'm 92, near enough.
Right, okay. So
yeah, about 50, bang on pretty much. And honestly, when Sam, any photo that you upload on social media of your physique, it does you no justice, because the density and the thickness that you have in person it's unbelievable. And we definitely do need to get another session soon, and we'll probably organise that as soon as we come off of this. But that's my 2-minute story there. Sam, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and fill in those gaps of when we were pals when we were little to pals now?
So just to piggyback on what you said about when we sort of reconnected, I remember exactly where I was when I started following you. Now, we have a friend in common who I used to work with, and she said, "There's this guy from Arbroath, he reminds me so much of you, just in the way that you are, the way that you talk, the things that you talk about and stuff like that." And I was like, "Oh, cool, what's his name?" She was like, his name's Thomas Sykes. Didn't even because obviously I know your dad's last name and stuff like that. Didn't even click that it was you. And then I followed you, and you followed me back, and you went, "Mate, this is going to sound so weird, but I already know you." And I was like, "What?" And then that's obviously kind of when we went a bit back and forth, and I was like, "Fucking hell, Andy Sykes, big Andy Sykes, blah blah blah, you're his son and all that sort of stuff." And that's kind of, so I remember exactly where I was when I started following you on Instagram. But to go back, way back to the start, mate, I've had a class life. I've had a fucking brilliant life. I come from a loving family. I grew up in a very loving and caring environment. I had an amazing set of mates. We'd be out every summer playing a different sport. School was good. I really applied myself when it came to kind of primary school and things like that. I was incredibly social, incredibly active. My mum thinks that if I was born in today's day and age, I'd have been diagnosed with X, Y, and Z, ADHD, ADD, all these sorts of buzz terms that we've got now. So yeah, in terms of kind of how I was brought up with kind of good morals, with a lot of respect for a lot of people, kind, caring, generous, all these sorts of things. Get to high school, things start to change a little bit for me, as I'm sure it does for a lot of young people, in that I discovered that I'm just not that much of an academic. And being in a place where obviously academia is a big driver for success. I then started to put a lot of pressure on myself when it came to school, because I was never that way inclined when it came to how I applied myself to that style of learning. So I always wanted to join the Royal Marines, a lot like my dad. Wanted to do that for, honestly, literally the longest time, right? Get through all the tests, and then one match playing football, which I'd played for probably about 8 years at this point, get the worst injury I've ever had. Ruptured my ligaments, ankle was fat as fuck. Like, honestly, there was honestly, mate, there was no denying what I'd done, right? So a bit of time goes by, the careers officer phones me. It's probably been about six to 7 months at this point. I'm running, but I'm not running as efficiently as I'd like to. Phones me and he goes, "Sam, where are we at with this? Is this something that you still want to do?" And I literally, probably for the first time, I'm about 21 at this point, right? Probably wanted to join the Royal Marines since I was like 10 years old. For the first time, I turned around to say to him, "No, nah, don't want to do this." Had no rhyme or reason, mate. Had no reason to say no, because going back on history, this is all I ever wanted to do. Academically, was pretty hopeless. Never had a decent job. Like, was a nice guy, but you know, being nice kind of doesn't really get you anywhere in the careers world. But had no reason to say no, but said no, and that was the lid on that. And then at the time I was working at the Odeon. It wasn't a career. It wasn't. I had bigger ambitions, had bigger drive. I just didn't know what that was. So I'm working at the Odeon. I'm earning, still living at home with mum and dad. And a mate goes to me, "You'd make a good personal trainer." And I'm like, "Well, I've thought about it before, but the fees and that you have to pay to get your qualifications and that's a bit of a hurdle." And he goes, "Nah, I think you'd be a good personal trainer. You're sound. You're good with people, and you're the fittest of our friends group. You always have been." And I went, "Sound." And then after that, I got speaking to Dad about the fees and all that sort of stuff, and he was like, "Right, we'll take out a loan for the fees, and then you can pay us back over an X amount of years, and this, that, and the next thing." And that was sort of the start of my personal training coaching journey. And to be honest with you, mate, 7 years I've been a coach for now. Not once did I look back on me saying no to the careers advisor and regret what I said. Like, not once. I love this. Everything that's coaching, everything that makes up a human being is applicable to trying to get them a certain result, and I want to understand as much of that as possible. And it's that, like, it really is that age-old saying that the more you know, the less you know. And that, as sadistic and as weird as this might sound, that really excites me.
Yeah,
that really excites me.
I had a funny conversation with Cassandra just on Wednesday about this. Like, she exact same as you. Like, I am exact same as you. I was the fittest of my pals. My pals were saying, like, go be a TT. And I think we'll come back to that and we'll maybe talk about that. I think that's like a gateway for a lot of people to becoming a personal trainer. But we were talking about this, like, the more and more that you learn about the human body, the mindsets, the psychology, the physiology, the biomechanics, everything, you start to realize, like, holy crap, I know nothing. And I guess, and I hate, like, digging at the fitness industry, but I don't think a lot of personal trainers realize that. And I think that once they do their gym volume training, they maybe get their own little results themselves. They're like, "Oh, this is how it's done, and that's the only way for it to be done."
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And when you start, you think you know this much, and then as time goes by, it's like, whoa, I know nothing.
Here I am in this valley of non-knowing.
Yeah, and you're reading constantly, and you're listening to stuff constantly, and you're like, oh my god, I know so little. And the more that you listen and the more that you read, the more that you realise there's like people out there that are experts in one thing, and then you're wanting to be an expert in that, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing.
Yeah. And it just never stops. It just never stops.
And that is a beautiful part of it, I suppose.
It is. It's like what is literally. It's literally what life's about. Is about. If there ever came a time, mate, where I stopped wanting to learn, or I stopped wanting to apply myself, or I don't know, I stopped wanting to be more than I am now, then put me out of misery, because I just can't think of stopping now. I just can't think of accepting who I am now as the final version of myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's just more to, I just think there's more to it than that.
Oh, 100%. So I had again, just to go on with this, to reiterate on your story, your point there. Like, I had a client, a very wise man. He was gay, but had been married to a female. He actually had a kid. He knew he was gay from a young age. I'm sure he won't mind me telling you this. But during one of our PT sessions, I remember saying to him, like, geez, I can't believe I thought I knew it all when I was like 23, 24, and I know so much more now. And he was like, I'm gonna stop you there. And I was like, all right. He was like, what you know now, he was like, give it 10 years time and you'll look back and think you were an idiot. And I just remember from there, I was like, right, I'm going to put way less pressure on myself to be as intelligent as I possibly can right now, and just realize that, like, as time goes by, I'm going to get smarter and smarter, or like get a better grasp of life.
Totally. Nah, I get it. Like, I even compared, so I've just recently turned 30, and I compared to myself to where I was at 25. Like, time creeps up on you. Life creeps up on you a little bit. So I can remember pretty vividly, like, what I was doing even just 5 years ago, and where I was, and what I thought, and what I believed, and taking that and comparing it to where I am now, and what I know now, and what I believe, and all these sorts of things. And you're right, I was a fucking idiot. Like I'm pretty dense now, but oh my god, I was fucking, honestly, granite dense before. Like, seriously. Like, it was unbelievable. But then I go, well, here's what I did in 5 years. When I'm 35, I hope I'm looking back on this podcast and going, Jesus Christ, Sam, why didn't you shave your hair off sooner, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, so...
So Sam, once you became a personal trainer, what sort of time was that? 7 years ago, you said 30, so like 23?
Yeah, there or thereabouts.
Okay, and then what were like the stages like once you got your qualification? Where did that go? What gyms have you worked in? How has clients changed as well?
Yeah, big time. So qualified, I'd already had a job lined up for when I qualified, and when that happened, I worked at David Lloyd, where my style of training for my clients and for myself was very Joe Wicks. Joe Wicks was he was the man to me. Honestly, everything he was and everything he stood for, and his aesthetic, and his business, and his charm and his character and stuff, mate, that was like, for me, that was the epitome of what the fitness industry should be like. So that was that's where I drew a lot of my motivation from. That was how I had trained for my entire life before that. So circuit training with a little bit of resistance training was kind of the bulk of most things. So I worked at David Lloyd that stint for about 2 years, when I then moved to DW, which was at Gallagher Retail Park. I stayed there for 3 months, and then I moved back to David Lloyd. Now, this was in and around a time in my life where... So at this point, I'm about 25. I'm not settled, mate. I'm not... There's a lot going through my mind about what I want from myself, from what I want from my life, in and out of relationships and all this sort of thing. So I think that played a large part as to why I ended up going back to David Lloyd, because David Lloyd was comfortable for me. I'd built I'd built somewhat of a reputation there. I knew the place, knew the staff, all this sort of thing. So went back to David Lloyd, and I stayed there for maybe about another year. So I've done about 4 years in the industry at this point, and then I moved back to DW because the things at David Lloyd had sort of, my relationship with them had broken down somewhat. There was very little trust there because of X, Y, and Z. So I moved to DW, and that for me was when my career kind of started to shift slightly, because I'd already competed for the first time at this point.
When was that?
That was in 2018. So that was when I had just gone to DW for the first time. Was the year that I was looking to compete. So I went back to DW. Like I said, I'd already competed at this point. I was bodybuilding, but not in the way that I am now. I was just kind of starting to dip my toe in and understand the mechanics of bodybuilding, what it takes to build a physique and all these sorts of things. So I go back to DW and I love it. I loved it there. Loved the staff. Felt like a family there. Business was really, really good because I had a newfound love for coaching at that point, because I was working with a slightly different demographic. There was a bit more freedom at DW with regards to who you could work with and things like that. So my passion for coaching and personal training and stuff like that had really kind of upped a gear, and it's been like that for the last 2-3 years now. But yeah, when I went to DW for the first time, that was kind of when I first dipped my toe into bodybuilding. I was working with a coach. My very first online coach was Jamie Durego. Don't know if you know him. He's an IFBB pro.
I'm not sure.
He was great. He was really, really good, but didn't really kind of... It was one of those things, I think, and there's a bit of a disconnect there between coaches like Jamie, who are quite clearly at the very, very top of their game when it comes to bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Elite tier bodybuilders who are absolutely jacked, pumped full of gear, coaching a natty 70 kilo man who's probably couldn't deadlift 100 kilos at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the styles didn't really match. But then that was less to do with Jamie and probably more to do with my understanding of the sport at the time. So a little bit of time goes by. I take what Jamie had taught me and I was applying it to myself for a period of time, and then I was thinking to myself, no, my 2018 season, my first competitive season, it was one show, wasn't really a season, let's put it that way. I'd kind of fucked it. I'd got lean very, very quickly. It was quite an aggressive cut up until a point, and then I just couldn't really hold that condition. It was the first time I'd been there. I didn't really understand what it would be to feel like that. So I just, mate, at that point, I ate the house down. Honestly, I'm surprised my mum and dad's house still exists. Like, I was ravenous, mate. Absolutely ravenous. I would walk to Sainsbury's to get myself 2 tubs of Ben & Jerry's to then walk back and scoff the bastards in one night. And here was me thinking, you know what? If I walk 20 minutes down the road and I walk 20 minutes back, I could justify 2 tubs of Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah.
Clown. Absolute clown.
I guess the cool thing about you bringing that point up is I had Ross on again just a couple of days ago, because he's like 8 weeks out now, and he had high days. And like, there's a thing that like I didn't, obviously, like when he's on and by the time this comes out, I think it'll still be pre-show, but like the hunger gets unbelievable, and you can see the joy in his face and hear it in his voice when he's talking about this high day. And I think a lot of like general population people maybe don't understand like you can be hungry, but you're okay. Like you are okay, and your body's going to get fed at some point. Like when you're dieting down to the extremities, you are hungry, you eat, you're still hungry.
Yeah.
And it's like human beings living in this like affluent world that we do, like we are very privileged, like you don't really ever get to experience that. As kids, you cried, you got fed. Like as adults, you get hungry, you go pick a biscuit, like you just go do whatever you want. But when you're prepping, and like this sort of like binge association, I think everybody does kind of go through it seems, the first time that they diet down to the extremities. How long did that last for you?
What, that feeling?
Yeah.
For quite a while, mate. To be honest, at this point, see my first slip during that prep wasn't like a slip and then I kind of regained my footing and away I went again. Like I slipped and then I thought to myself, fuck this. Like I'm 70 kilos soaking wet here. Like I'm not going to be any sort of this like competitive bodybuilder. I'm not going to be to this standard and all this sorts of thing. Like I much prefer this, being able to binge my tits off and then step on stage and pose in front of people. But here was the thing. I was thinking this way, but I had never actually stepped on stage and posed in front of people.
Yeah.
So until I actually stepped on stage and posed in front of people, because mate, I'm a posing bastard. Like honestly, like I played in a band when I was growing up. I've always, in the nicest way possible, enjoyed being the centre of attention, always enjoyed the spotlight and all these sorts of things. So in theory, stepping on stage in a tiny pair of trunks, you know, mate, give me that. Give me that.
Yeah,
so
because
I loved it.
Yeah, and that's similar to myself. Like we'll talk about this like hunger for a little bit, and then I definitely want us to, because we spoke a lot about this last time we trained Impact and Carnoustie, like the difference between confidence and arrogance, and like being an attention seeker and then actually like just enjoying getting attention. Like I want to come back and talk a bit about that, but I think we stay on this topic of like extreme hunger and binge eating. Right, if anybody is listening that does have binge eating disorders or any sort of eating disorder or disordered eating, we're not professionals, and we're sure as shit not glorifying it, but this is something that does happen in bodybuilding, and I just kind of want to share some stories that I've gone through. Hopefully Sam will have a couple as well, and Sam, if you're comfortable to talk about it, we will. Like that. So again, if you are someone going through something like that, maybe you don't want to listen anymore, I'll probably timestamp this on YouTube so that you'll know when you can kind of come back, because there are other topics that I'm sure that we're going to talk about that you will want to hear about. But if this is going to be a triggering thing, we apologise, and we are not people to be listening to for advice. Go seek it from professionals. This is just Sam and I's experience. It may provide some entertainment, but we're not glorifying it. It's just stories, and it's real. I want you to hear what we go through when this happens, to give and shine some light on people. There's potentially people out there that are thinking about doing this. I don't want it to put them off, but these are some of the things that happen, and they are quite common. So you said there, like, you were justifying to yourself, like, this binging's better than it's ever going to feel standing on stage. Like, who cares? I can remember after my first shoot, I managed to get pretty close to stage lean. I think I was maybe a couple pounds off, but I got really, really lean. I can remember feeling all right until I ate. And then once I ate, I never felt such a like rush of like happiness. And I was eating to the point because I just wanted to feel full. I was like, I'll eat till I'm full and then I'll stop, because that's what everybody recommends you do. Just eat till you're full and stop. And I was eating and I was like 6 donuts later, I was like, I'm still not full.
Yeah, mate, honestly.
And
that feeling of full when you're that lean just doesn't come so easily, does it? No. And for people listening, like, you have hunger hormones, and I'm sure there's 3, but I can never remember the third. There's ghrelin, leptin, and then I'm sure there's another one. Who knows? Don't matter. Yeah, as well.
your hunger hormones go out the pot. You feel hungry all the time and you ignore it. Your body signals to eat with this hormone. You ignore it, so your body goes skew for producing it, or it starts like producing excessive amounts. You've not actually felt full for a long time, so your body's like screaming for you to eat more. And it is like a physiological thing. Like, you genuinely, when you do start to eat a lot of calories, you feel good. And that's why so many people are over-consuming calories. It's why companies like Domino's, McDonald's, restaurants that have these high-calorie meals, it's why they do so well, because you get a response. There's an emotional response to that. There is a feel-good factor. But I can remember straight after the shoot, I think I had 2 donuts. I had this like big pastrami sandwich and a breakfast. And I'd said to Lisa, I was like, that's enough. Like, I don't want to eat anymore. And then we went out for tea, and I got like these massive cheese wedges to start. I had a lasagna, a large pizza, and then I had this like 4-way sharer dessert thing. And I ate it all, and there was this woman across, like, absolutely horrified. And I mean, like she was like, it wasn't shock, it was like anger or disgust. And I can remember just being like, oh well.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm still hungry, I'm going to keep eating. But I said to Lisa, I was like, right, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go, and we'll eat someone else later. Walking back to the apartment, because we stayed there in Edinburgh for the weekend, I ended up buying like a bag of granola, and I ate the whole bag. I ate a banana though. I ate a banana, and it was the best tasting thing of everything. But after that weekend, I gained 6 kilos.
Yeah.
And I won't go right into like the next day, but it's that hunger is just insatiable. Like, and people don't understand. Like, it's not the same as like you're hungry and you maybe eat a lot and then you're like, oh god, I feel like, you don't feel anything. Your stomach's distended and then it hurts, but you're like, I could eat more.
You do, and it's not like you can't describe it unless you're in it.
100%.
Because
100%.
even when I finished prepping this year, my second ever prep, with a lot more knowledge and understanding of bodybuilding and what it took to get to a certain level, I still wasn't able to kind of curb that feeling post-show to not binge and to not go over the top. And like Tom says, obviously, just to echo, none of us are professionals in this field. We are just 2 guys talking about our own experiences and how we felt at the time. But yeah, it just wasn't like, imagine eating and then feeling full and then feeling that discomfort of being distended and all that sort of stuff, and then still wanting to eat more. It's just, it's not a nice feeling, actually. No, and it's one that you know in your mind, that you know from a bodybuilding aspect and from a physique aspect that if I'm going to do my best here, I have to stop this. But you don't. Yeah. You don't. And it's like, it's a very, very slippery slope that as soon as you slip, you're going at the bottom.
Yeah.
You're going at the bottom. But it's tough. It's tough.
I remember as well, like, so I was still with Vaughn at the I was with Vaughn, and I've only been coached by Vaughn. I was with Vaughn, and I remember saying to him, like, look, Vaughn, mate, I've had a massive blowout again. And he was like, all right. He was like, this does happen. He was like, let's just try and like, just remember it's unhealthy to do. And I remember just replying, being like, I actually don't care, because it feels so good, just like having these big blowouts. And it took me quite a while to like settle down, and like I knew what I was doing. But at the time, it just felt, like I say, like it felt so right. And the thing that like totally shocked me after competing in 2020, I think it was, I can't remember now, 2021, I don't know when it was now, I can't remember. Like how, like that didn't happen the second time. Like, I was almost expecting it to happen again, and that was what I was most nervous about. I was like, I don't want to be stuck in that, like, because you've looked the best you've ever looked, and if you're gorging and eating like I was eating like probably close to 10,000 calories every day, like,
yeah, mate,
quite comfortably. and it's just, you see yourself get softer and softer, and all that hard work starts to disappear. But I can remember justifying to myself, like, well, I don't care how I look. I don't care. And this is definitely something that does happen in bodybuilding. And I know from like the outside looking in, and I've spoke with Justine about this a few times. She's a psychologist and a competitive bodybuilder as well. Like, a lot of stuff from like the general population looking in, it's bonkers. It's insane. But having gone through it, like, you know, people get through it.
Yeah.
And it can just be like a short spell. And that doesn't justify it. That doesn't make it sexy in any way. That doesn't make it like acceptable. Like, but it is just, it's a part, and it's a very common thing. And I think a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll shy away and be embarrassed. Because I can remember being embarrassed, like going to one-on-one sessions and clients tell me, oh, I ate a bit more at the weekends. I was like, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do because you wouldn't believe what I'd done over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I can remember like wholeheartedly just being like embarrassed most of the time, because I was supposed to be like Mr. Health and Fitness, and it just didn't happen like that.
And that's it. You put that when it comes to you and your coaching and the persona that you put out there. We are only really just more experienced versions of the clients that we coach, and we don't know everything. We're never going to know everything, and you can only hope that with more experience, because I am going to compete again, with more experience, that next time you just put things in place that make that phase that little bit more manageable than it was the time before. Because that's all you got. All you got is experience.
That's all you got.
You got is experience.
And we don't get everything right as well. Like, that's like a thing I try and tell my clients all the time. Like, like, say they check in and like, oh, I've had a bad week. I'll be like, look, it's not bad. It's just not gone perfectly.
Yeah. And
perfect doesn't really happen very often. And like,
yeah. The thing is, define that as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, if we're talking about bad in the realms of physique development, there's probably a very narrow window for what bad actually is. But there's more to life than physique development. Do you know what I mean? So,
100%.
You know, whilst you might have ate a little bit more on Friday than what is in line with the physique goal that you've set yourself, doesn't mean to necessarily say you've had a bad week. So let's not absorb ourselves of that bad. There's more to it. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, I'm just going to put another point in here that I've just thought about, that like, to maybe potentially provide some value for someone that is listening. Like, there's people that, like, the longest that they've ever dieted is maybe a week, and then they maybe have these like binge spells. Or do you know what? I prefer the word gorge, because I think like binge eating is like a disorder. So like this gorge where they excessively eat due to either restriction or like just like they have made themselves extremely hungry. That like, a lot of people, what happens is they diet for that first week and they try one method, it doesn't work, and then they're like, right, that doesn't work, or I wasn't good enough or hard enough on myself. But what people, if that is you and that is happening, maybe you're managing a month, maybe you're managing 6 weeks, maybe you're managing 8 weeks, 12, whatever it is, like, you can learn from them. Like I said earlier, in 2019 when I first dieted down, I gained 6 kilos back, so that's like a stone the first weekend. And I've put up the photos before to show the change in my physique. Like, I don't have a six-pack anymore. Like, it's near enough gone. This second time, I think it took 6 months for me to gain 6 kilos. I put on like 3 pretty quick, maybe 4, and then it just like settled out. But you'll know yourself, Sam, that like in bodybuilding, you're at a level of body fat that is unhealthy anyway, so you want to put on body fat pretty quick. Yeah. Doesn't feel great, but you want to put on body fat quickly so you can like become a normal human being again.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So, and a thing that I've posted about a few years ago now, I think it was, is like, something that's really helped me dieting is I've gotten better at fat loss. And by that, I've been able to like take high days or diet breaks or refeeds. I've been able to understand that like you were saying a minute ago, like, it's about experience. Like, the only thing we've had is we recomp like once or twice a year, most years. So we go through fat loss phases. We then push ourselves for like 8, 9, 6 months, however long, just purely doing fat loss. And like getting that time and that experience in a fat loss phase or dieting, you do just get better at it. And if you are someone listening and you're hearing us talk about like, oh Jesus Christ, I feel like that after every couple of weeks, like, you just maybe need to reassess things. Maybe reach out to Sam, I, or any other PTs that have been on the show before, or any PTs in your area. Ask them for some good advice. You'll know who can provide good advice. And just try and get better. Like, learn from the mistakes. And it does get easier. Like, that last time there, I felt a lot more comfortable. I guess we kind of move on. Let's go to the bodybuilding side of things. And let's talk about the feeling of being on stage. Because I didn't expect it to be what it was.
Right.
And similar to you, I loved it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Can you maybe touch on, like, the first time that you stepped on stage, and then either differences, worries, excitements that you had the next time, and then for the future times?
So like I touched on, I asked my mum, right? So to sort of paint the picture or get the paintbrush going, I can always remember a time, right? Do you remember the song by Wolfmother, Woman?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was on Guitar Hero 2 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Absolute banger, mate, right? My mum would probably be able to tell you a story, but I always remember the story of me, like, dancing about in my underwear to that song. Like taking my t-shirt off and throwing it across the room and all that sort of stuff, and just, like, dancing about to this song with absolutely, like, zero cares in the world. Now, people are probably listening to this going, yeah, fuck, I do that in my house all the time, sing in the shower, all this sort of stuff, but where there might be a difference is that I don't actually mind doing this in public. So that's where people listening might just be able to draw the line there. So then, again, like I said, I've been on stage before, I've played in a band before, I know what it's like to play and perform in front of people. So in 2018, when I competed for the first time, stepping on stage wasn't my issue whatsoever. I actually felt incredibly comfortable standing up there in my bodybuilding trunks that leave zero to the imagination. Like presenting this very washed out, watery, flubbery physique that in the realms of bodybuilding wasn't a very competitive physique whatsoever, but I presented it with no shame, mate. Zero shame. When it came to my routine, I made it up. I didn't even give it any thought. I just knew what song. Like, I just knew what song I was going to perform to, and I just...
Not Woman.
No, it wasn't Woman. But you know what? In theory, it should have been. Yeah, that would have been a very, very different performance, I can assure you. That would. But yeah, I absolutely winged that. But the amount of people who actually came up to me and said, "Oh, your routine was really, really good. Like, you must have practiced that." I was like, "Yeah, like day in, day out." You know, you know what I mean. So when it came to that side of things, and it came to stepping on stage, like, really zero problems, to be honest.
Yeah. You know the trend in sound, and it's like everyone's doing it just now on Instagram, and it's like all these like voices going, and then someone like picks up dumbbells and it goes quiet.
Right, yeah. Uh-huh.
That was very much what stepping on stage was like for me. Like, there was all this like worry, nerves, like all of it. But it was like as soon as I stepped through the curtain, it was just like, we have a job to do now, and you know your routine. Well, I knew mine. I knew what I had to do. I was like, go out, you do it, and it doesn't actually matter. Like, because I never thought of myself as like I was going to be competitive. I was like, I'm just here. I challenged myself to be here. So I would step out, and that totally relaxed me. I don't know if I'll have the same feeling next time I go on stage, because I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself, but I have some pretty big goals.
Yeah. Well, with me, they are. and obviously we spoke about them, and that's like, well, when you talk about bodybuilding, that's, you don't really go much higher than that, do you?
No. So, like, people that are listening, like, what I am going to try and do is I'm going to try and, I don't know if I should say it. It feels weird saying it. And this is something that we'll maybe talk about. We can go straight from this, actually. I want to try and win number one in the world. Like, I want to try and be the number one men's physique in, like, I'd like it to be in the WNBF, but I'd quite like to push it to the point where it's like, that season, I, like, win everything. Like, that's kind of where my goals are at. So if you are listening and you think I'm an arrogant WNK, I get it. Like, I do get it. But this is, I guess, something else that we could talk about. We'll come back to, like, the bodybuilding feeling and that if you want to. But, like, something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is, like, what is the difference between, like, self-belief, confidence, and arrogance? Like, where are the lines? And when we were in Impact last time, we spoke a lot about, like, our goals, what we want to achieve, what we believe we can achieve. And I don't know if you've got an opinion on that. It's a pretty deep question, like, to even think about it just now. And I didn't, like, for anybody listening, I didn't give Sam any questions before we came on. Like, none of these answers are prepared or scripted or anything. Like, my questions are in front of me. But so, Sam, like, what do you think? What do you feel is the difference between self-belief, confidence, and arrogance?
The difference between those things is entirely down to the perception of the individual looking at these things. So how we feel within ourselves as individuals is going to be perceived very, very differently depending on the individual looking at us. Yeah. So that's where it gets very, very blurry and very, very murky, is that you're never going to be able to have this formula that measures one person's self-belief and have it decided whether or not it's arrogance or just self-confidence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point, in that I don't give a fuck. So, like, how I don't, to be honest, I think I've practiced this very well in my very small time on this earth, to portray myself in a way that is confident, driven, ambitious. I would like it if people looked at me and seen the epitome of what it was like to believe in oneself and be confident without throwing it in people's faces. And like I said, if you're someone who does think that about me, I don't give a fuck. But that brings me back to my point in that how you perceive that is entirely up to you. I just always hope that for the most part people see that how I deliver myself and how I act and in my practices as a coach is purely for the betterment of my team and the people I love the most. And that's really kind of all that matters to me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's a very good answer. I actually asked it on social media once, and the kind of like little answer that I got was like, self-belief's when you keep it within you, and then it becomes arrogant the second you say it, and someone else hears it.
I don't know. Like, again, I don't know if that's my perception of it. Like, I think it's good to be outwardly confident.
Yeah.
But there's a very, very fine line between being outwardly confident and being arrogant and delusional. But again, that fine line is drawn by the person perceiving it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why there's never any kind of there's not a set standard.
Yeah, 100%. And I've been called arrogant a lot of times in my life.
Yeah.
And the thing with me is like if I'm saying like, oh yeah, I think I could do that, or I could do that, I don't just believe that just I could. I think anybody could. It just takes a bit of time, a bit of effort, practice, outsourcing the right things. And I know that there are those people that are like the outliers that are just unbelievable human beings that can do stuff that none of us ever will be able to do. Yeah. But I do think practice, effort, consistency, I think they are big parts to why people become the best.
That's right.
And I am all in with doing all of those things for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Just to see where I can get.
Yeah. And beyond, mate.
Yeah, but the goal is
bodybuilding, like, and beyond. In life.
Yeah. Yeah. But the goal is, that is the goal. The goal for me just now, for those that care, is I want to be in 2025. I want to be taking like championships, like at the WMF final.
Yeah, so. Mate. Honestly, sting it, because you've obviously told me, but to put it out there cements it a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, obviously, I don't coach you or anything like that, but I see you train and I see how you conduct yourself and I know your character. There wouldn't be a doubt in my mind that you couldn't then go on to do that. Whether that's feasible or not wouldn't be for me to decide. That would be for you and Vaughn to decide.
Yeah, but judges as well, I suppose.
The judges as well, but then if Vaughn hasn't turned around and said, Tom, like, you're full of it, mate, then
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's all about where can you cap that confidence and keep it realistic without it being delusional. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I guess a nice thing for me to tap into here as well is, like, don't get me wrong, there are days where I'm like, Tom, you're 35 this year. Like, you don't have great pecs. That's an important part of this. Some days you're not going absolute failure, and there's other people training harder. Like, I do still get self-doubt. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't always, and I'm pretty sure you'll know the feeling. Like, there are times where you have self-doubt. There are times where motivation's like, I'm moving house just now. Do I have time to go train legs? Legs don't even really matter for men's physique. Like, I get those days. Like, I really do. And like trying to force myself to eat while like there's a bit of doubt, but I think if I was to give it like 10 years time and look back and not to have tried this, I think I'd be really mad at myself.
Yeah, you would.
And I don't want to sound like I know 35 is not that old, but I feel like I've gotten myself like with me and Vaughn from the season before, we got ourselves to a position where it could, like, I'm as close as I could get to make it happen. If I was to wait any longer, there'd be no chance, or the less chance. And I think if I tried to do it sooner, I would have just fallen out of love with things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. 100%. It's one of those things with bodybuilding as well. It's that obviously the older you get, the more the maturer your physique becomes as well. But then there also comes a point where you're not going to do this forever.
No.
So it's deciding and just trusting in your ability to understand yourself that it's going to take a little bit of time, but it can't take too much time, because eventually the time will pass you by.
Yeah. So a quote that I really like is, be patient but don't wait.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you just said there. Like,
Pretty much.
Yeah. So again, that was loads about me, and I apologise because this is about Sam. Sam.
Yeah, that's the coach coming out in me, mate. Is me understanding you and how
I appreciate it,
etc., etc.
We actually have an idea. I've got a friend who works for the BBC. She's an incredible human being, and she wants to get more involved in this. We're going to try and maybe do an episode of her interviewing me on this podcast.
Right. Okay.
But I don't know how I feel about it, because I don't feel like she's far more interested than me, and I want to try and make it about her, but I'm trying to twist her arm.
It sounds like the deal's already been made.
She won't take it. Like, even if she comes on and says, "Yeah, Tom, you can interview me," she will completely flip it on. I know she will. It's just the way she is. But Sam, let's talk about you. Your goals. Like, what are you currently working towards? What are you currently like in 5 years' time? Where do you want to see yourself?
So my biggest goal, and I've only ever really, I've got my goals written down on my wallpaper on my phone. Wallpaper. Do people even call it that anymore?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
the wallpaper on
Yeah,
my phone.
I think so. I'm a boomer though. Remember that.
Yeah, the front cover, the screensaver, whatever. And the bottom one I'm going to keep to myself.
Yeah.
But my overall goal in life and in business is to have financial freedom for myself and my family. And I don't mean that in that I don't want to make hundreds of thousands of millions of pounds, right? That's not me saying that I want to be driving lavish cars and have big houses and all that sort of stuff. I could care less about that stuff. But especially this last year, and I don't know if it's with turning 30, I am still incredibly young, by the way. I'm not saying that this is me getting to an age where, like, oh, can't wait to retire and all that sort of stuff. No, not at all. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that I would like to, having the best 30 years of my life so far, people have helped me get to this point in helping me morph myself into the man that I am today, into a man that I am very proud of being. I want to be able to give back to those who have provided me that platform to grow into this person that I have grown into, with them being able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, without that financial restriction on them. So that is, I guess, that is my overall goal for business and in life. In bodybuilding, it's a very vague one, to be honest, mate, because I am a natural competitor. I always will be. I am not ever the biggest or the strongest in the room. I might not even be the guy who has the best physique in the room. Will not have the most naturally gifted quads, delts, this, that, and the next thing. But what I can be is I can be the most consistent. Is I can be the hardest working. So if I give my all to those two things, combined with that self-belief, that confidence, that arrogance, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
I can do a hell of a fucking lot in life. I can do a hell of a lot. Now, whatever that is, wherever that ceiling is, I don't know. But I have this melting pot of things that I'm very happy with being. And if I keep stirring that melting pot, it's going to make for a very, very tasty meal, shall we say, mate?
Yeah, 100%. They're good goals. Very good goals.
Yeah.
So this is a question that just kind of popped into my head when I was talking. So, like, again, you're a great speaker and a fantastic thinker. Like, you do think about your answers, and this is why I kind of want to ask you these deeper questions. And I'm not going so much into like what I jotted down. And like I said to you right before we jumped on, I was like, Sam, at the end of this, I'm going to have to say, like, you're going to have to come on again because I didn't ask a bunch of questions. Like, do you have any recommendations or advice or steps someone could take to increase their own confidence?
Again, confidence is one of those things that looks very, very different to lots of different people. Now, where I would probably start with that, and something that I don't think I did a lot of when I was younger or immature, shall we say, was focus on what makes me great to be around. what makes me a good human being? What makes me a functioning human being that puts out into the world, that makes it a better place to be? And start there. I think it's a hard one. It's a hard one to give advice on someone who lacks confidence, because people want different things. People act different ways. And like I said, that confidence is perceived differently across many different people. But there will always be things that make that one person amazing to be around. And I would focus on that. Focus on that, and how can you amplify that through work, through training, through further education, through whatever avenues that nurture those traits that make you a good person to be, is a good place to start.
Yeah. One of my favourite quotes, and I'm going to butcher it here, is like, stop worrying about what the world needs, because what the world needs is you to like be you.
Yeah.
And no, I think that's a good. I think there is, like, and again, this is something maybe we could talk about just now, Sam. It's an unbelievable feeling. Like, we've both gone through spells of like low mental health, well-being, anxiety, depression, stress, these things. And it's unbelievable when you can just like take that pressure off of trying to be someone else, and you do just wholeheartedly, unapologetically be yourself, with like way less worry about what someone else is going to, like, how much better that makes you feel.
Oh yeah, big time, 100%. Like when you can be yourself unapologetically. Now, I just want to rewind slightly on what I'm saying there, because if you are yourself unapologetically, and you're a massive dick, then then apologise for who you are, because you're a dick, right? And the world needs less people like you.
Yeah.
Right? So because I've said this in previous posts before, that I have said it in previous posts. I can't think off the top of my head of what I've said it in. But if you do your best in life, right, and you can be yourself unapologetically without hurting others, then you're winning.
Yeah.
I genuinely think you can do anything. Like
you reduce so much noise and distraction, and like, I think it like takes away from your clarity. And I think I guess that's like a good step for confidence. Like, if you can get clear on what it is you do want to do, and then I think once you get that clarity, if you take the first step as opposed to trying to do the whole thing, that's the word.
That is the word there, is clarity. Because see, when you understand yourself on a level that you know, when you know that you're someone who can really make a difference, that gives you clarity, that gives you direction, that gives you purpose. And see, as soon as you have these things, I genuinely think the world is your oyster at that point. And there's a massive power in that. And anyone who feels that way will know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those of you that don't, your struggle is valid, your feelings are valid, but what are you going to do about it is probably the most important question you could ask yourself.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think for a lot of people listening, and I think this is a great like segue into this, that like people will be like, oh yeah, but it's fine for you. You've always been confident. You've always been able to, like, you've always been centre of attention. You've probably always been good at things as well. Like, there'll be people thinking that and listening. But I do want to touch on it. And I was going to hold this, but I know you're in a rut. I know you're short on time, and I don't want to like rush through this answer. So we'll just try and get the best we can. Like, Sam's video was one of the first videos that I'd ever heard of someone local going viral. And And it was like through my dad, when he'd mentioned your video, you like openly spoke exactly about how you felt. And I think it was one of the most open and honest, like self-reflections I've heard about mental health. And like you were like opening yourself up, not just purely to talk about how you felt, but you wanted other people to know that like either they're okay to feel like you said there, like your feelings are valid. Like you were so open, and people, like, I want people to actually, if you go look back at this video, the way Sam holds and carries himself now is it's different. Like this video, Sam was not Sam. Sam is now Sam. And I think like the people that are listening, like, oh, it's easy for you to say that. Like, go back, look at that video. But Sam, could you maybe talk a little bit about how, like, spells of low mental well-being, spells of depression, like pre-lockdown, lockdown, and then even today, like if there's anything that crops up or how you feel?
So I can remember, so obviously I'm 30 now, I can remember spells of when I was 15, 16, 17, that kind of age, of having low bouts of mental health, but not knowing that they were low bouts of mental health. Like, I just thought how I felt and how I was living my life at that moment in time was what it was like to live. And I guess in a sense, saying that back, that is kind of what it's like to live. But I didn't ever understand that there were things that I could do to help minimize the upset, the sadness, the depression, to minimize those feelings and make my life a bit more manageable is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I can remember moments back from when I was kind of late teens of when I was having bouts of poor mental health. And then as I kind of grow up and get into my 20s, my early 20s, that's when I'm then starting to understand, wait a minute, this is happening all too frequently, this is happening all too often for this to be normal, for this to be okay. Not normal, but for this to be something that, like, I can't just keep going through life like this and then every few months feel like this. Like, there's got to be something. I wanted more for myself. At this point, I knew enough about myself that that I wanted more from life than what this wee guy in my mind was telling me. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. Early 20s, I'm kind of starting to understand a little bit more about how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling.
Sorry to cut you off, but see, during like the 15, 16, up to your 20s, was there anything that you'd done? Did you reach out to anybody, or did you just go through that yourself? And
just went through it, mate. Literally, just went through it. Because at this point, I'm still wanting to join the Royal Marines. Like, I still have this... Like, I'm looking at my dad and what my dad's achieved in his life. He's in the prison service. He's been in the prison service for 25 years. He's been in the Royal Marines. My granddad was in the RAF. He'd been in Singapore, helped start up all these kind of survival schools and all these sorts of things. So I'm looking at these men in my life and I'm going, I'm working at the Odeon. Do you know what I mean? And it was not their fault. It was 100% not their fault, but I put this certain level of unnecessary pressure on myself in order to be something more than what I was at that current moment. So that brought in a lot of kind of unwanted feelings and unwanted emotions, combined with the fact that naturally there's a wee man in my brain that just doesn't want to work properly. So you compound all these things and you've got this thing that really does become quite unbearable at moments. Throw in that young adolescent life where you're making a lot of mistakes that are outwardly affecting other people, makes it incredibly difficult, because you know that deep inside you know you're not a bad guy, but you're doing bad things that are affecting the people that you love the most. So you compound all that, and it's hard, mate. It's really, really hard. Like, relationships break down. You're acting in ways that aren't in line with these internal opinions that you have of yourself. So there's a lot of conflict going on there. So I'm getting through my early 20s. I'm starting to understand a little bit more. Like I said, relationships have broken down, new relationships have formed, meeting new people, things are happening, but things aren't happening as quickly for me as what I'm wanting them, as what I think I deserve, basically. So that's kind of where I started to outwardly seek help. I started to go to a counsellor. I started attending a mental health group in Broughty Ferry. I started to talk a little bit more openly with friends. And these things made it more manageable, but it didn't cure me. It didn't cure me. And I just want to shout out Vicky Simpson-Price as well, who is an excellent counsellor and psychologist, who runs a group in the Broughty Ferry for people who suffer from mental health problems and bad bouts of mental health. And she does a fantastic job. Probably not that any counsellor or psychologist before me wasn't approachable, but she certainly got the most out of me and certainly made the most effort with me and understood me on a level. So then, yeah, we're kind of getting through that. I'm loving personal training. I've finally found this career that I love to do. I've found bodybuilding, and I'm buzzing away. I'm this compact ginger ball of energy who's ready to who's ready to just like take the world by storm. But I've just always got this little thing going on. Well, that's not, and again, that's not depression. That's an inner drive. That's an inner pressure that I have on myself, which I think then aggravates my bad bouts of mental health. Because I'm also someone who, I am a very deep thinker. I do ask a lot of questions of myself. I do always challenge myself in ways to be better. So I don't always put every day I have down to the fact that I have depression or that I suffer from depression and anxiety and all these sorts of things, because you can, as a human being, have bad days. You can, as a human being, have bad weeks, bad months. But that does not mean that you have depression. So, yeah. But I know that I do, because I'm doing all these things that people are telling you that you should do. I'm eating well, I'm training well, I'm talking. I have the greatest family, I have the greatest friends, I have the greatest relationships, I have all these things that any one young man could ever want or ever need, but I'm still suffering from all these issues that I'm having. So I've been on medication before as well, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners will have had experience with and have felt a certain kind of way towards. I've been on fluoxetine, which didn't. It helped how I felt, but it didn't really. Basically, what fluoxetine did is it made me feel quite docile and quite tired and quite lethargic. And whilst I'm sleeping, I'm napping, obviously I'm not feeling then anxious or depressed or all these sorts of things because I'm sleeping. But with the life that I have, me sleeping for long periods of times and napping and stuff like that, I can't do that. I'm a personal trainer, I'm a coach. People rely on me. I exercise, I train, and all these sorts of things, and I'm trying to make that work as much as possible. So I can't be sleeping all the time, basically. So I come off fluoxetine, and there's a large period of time where I'm not on any kind of medication. I'm just sort of feeling my way through certain situations. And then by this point, we're at lockdown time. And the start of lockdown was chaos. Absolute mayhem. The gym's shutting. I'm seeing people empty their lockers and all this sort of stuff. I'm talking about lockdown, and we're all saying, oh, it's fine, like I'll see you in a few weeks and all these sorts of things, and it's not really feeling that real. But then obviously you're in your house and you're, at this point I'm doing WhatsApp sessions over video call, and so I'm earning, but I'm not earning as much as I was. And then a few weeks pass, gym's still not open. Another couple of weeks pass, gym's still not open. And at this point, we're settling into this lockdown. We're not doing an awful lot, and we're starting to think, is this it? Like, is this what life is now? So I'm worrying about where business is going. I'm not training as much because I'm home, and home is where I'm comfortable, and I don't associate that with training and all this sort of stuff. And a lot of the pillars that I have that have held me up previously are slowly crumbling around me, and I'm not strong enough yet mentally and emotionally to be able to carry myself and stand on my own 2 feet. So things are hard, and when things are hard, it makes you feel a certain way, and then once you start to feel a certain way, you slump into that little bit more. I'm not feeling myself. Trigger warning here. I'm feeling suicidal. I wanted to die, mate. I did. I thought that despite all these years of me working hard to solidify myself as this human being who can make a difference to the people around them, and I thought that dying and not being around these things was a way out. I thought that was a solution. And that, at that point there, is when, because again, I'm an inward thinker, I challenge myself a lot. That's when I know I'm saying, God, this must be really bad that someone like me is thinking like this. So that's when I get to that point where I'm like, I need to just put it out there. I've talked. Still in touch with my counsellor. I'd been going on walks with her and things like that, and I'm still communicating with my friends. We're still talking a lot about how we feel, but again, I'm not earning money. I'm still in the house with mum and dad and all these sorts of things. So there's no real, nothing's happening, mate. Nothing's going on. So I said to myself, right, I'm gonna put this message out here because I think I'm not the only one. I'm not going to be the only one. Can't be. No. So I type up this message because, as good of a speaker as I am, I didn't want how I felt to muddy what I was, the message I was trying to portray. So I wrote down what I wanted to say, and I put my phone on front camera, and I stood there with my phone in my hand, and I read out what I needed to say, and I was getting upset at what I was reading, because I was essentially not talking to a camera, but I was talking to myself about how I felt, and it was sad. It was sad that I felt the way that I did. It was upsetting that I wanted to die. It was, I didn't want to exist anymore, mate. And I was thinking, because I was going out in my car, I was going for like a wee drive and stuff like that, and I was thinking, fuck, if I put my foot down on the accelerator here, there's a lamppost up there. If I go as fast as fuck into that lamppost, that could be it. As easy as that, wouldn't feel a thing. And yeah, that's just not right, mate.
So, yeah, no, it's definitely not, and I don't want to like come away like anybody like thinking I'm like not, but like I'm not listening. I'm really listening. But was there or like I don't want anybody to think that we're coming away from this or I'm taking away from what you're saying, because I think it is, and I think it's a way more common feeling than it is like led to believe now. I think there's a lot of people feel that way. What was the straw that broke the camel's back when you were younger and you decided to go to counselling? And then what happened, or was there a turning point when you felt like this, that things started to get better? Was there actions or steps that you took?
So I think, obviously in my late teens, I'm knowing that I'm feeling a certain way, but I'm not understanding that it's not normal. I just thought that it was. And then as I've gotten older, I felt still feeling the way that I'm feeling, but now I'm starting to understand that it's not. Because I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning that I want better for me than what my depression and anxiety was giving me. And because I'm a very sort of, I'm a deep thinker. I challenge myself a lot in more ways than just mentally and emotionally. Like, always competed in sports days, always been competitive at football, all these sorts of things. So I've always wanted, I think that's kind of stood me in good stead to put myself in a stronger position to be able to manage it, because I think, single-handedly, the most competitive man I know. I can make eating breakfast a competition. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can make heart rate readings a competition. If someone says, "Oh, I've got a lower heart rate than you," I'd be like, "Ah, fuck off! I've got a lower heart rate than you," and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, stupid. Honestly, mate, stupid. But I've had to stop playing fives now because my mates aren't footballers, right? I have, and I'm not, because I'm a bodybuilder. I don't move the way that I used to move. So injuries are going to happen. But yeah, kind of as I'm getting older, I'm leaning on that a little bit, and I'm remapping my thought process towards it and saying, well, what if I could be as competitive towards these things that I've been competitive in before, towards my depression and anxiety? What if I went, you know what? You want to die, but I'm not going to let you, sort of thing. As silly as it sounds, it's almost like, well, you know what, Sam, going like you not to put a humorous spin on it, on something that's not very humorous at all. My mind's going, go on, Sam, go on, you can do it. Like, you could put your foot down here and go into that lamppost, sort of thing. I'm going, nah, fuck you. And the thing that gets me the most, and I don't know if I'll get upset saying it, but I can't imagine my mum, like, knowing that I did what I did. So that, like, that sits with me hard. So I'm getting to this point in my life where I'm understanding that this is not something I'm getting over. Like, it's a part of who I am, and I'm pretty fucking amazing. So for me being this amazing and this great and this caring and this kind and this giving and this ambitious and this driven and all these sorts of things, and have a little bit of depression on the side, I'll take that all day, every day. All day, every day.
I guess that little like the competition that you have in your mind, that battle, that internal battle, I guess that could be like the definition of beating it. Like not letting that voice or that person or that thing inside your head take away from who you actually are.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, like and again, we're not glorifying this. We actually want this to be a place where other young men, women, whoever, people that don't feel good can come and then like maybe get new ideas. Or we're not people to give you advice. Like, don't take what we're saying as advice. No. This is Sam's experience. This is Sam. We just want other people to see that, like, being okay or not being okay is okay, but you have to want to do something about it. Like, you can't just accept it. Does that make sense, or is that like not making? Maybe I'm not making full sense.
100%. No, 100%. Because I think we do. I think, and I'm not pointing fingers because I can never understand. I can never be in someone else's shoes because even if I am, your feelings are your own and your emotions are your own and your life is your own. But I almost feel like there's a little bit of a get out of jail free card here when it comes to mental health, and that we will blame a lot of what we do and how we act as a result of poor mental health. Now, don't get me wrong, I have been in positions where I have felt very, very poor bouts of mental health and it has made me act a certain way. But you have to hold yourself accountable to that. You have to hold yourself, like, you have to hold your hands up and go, I am sorry, deeply and truly, but understand that sorry is not enough. It's not just enough to apologise. You have to actively be seeking help. You have to actively be putting things in place that help you not beat it, but certainly put it in its place and work with it. Because you are, mate. And I'm like, I sit here today speaking to you, knowing that, you know, I could be making another video in 5 years' time. As easy as that. It would take a hell of a lot more because I've worked really, really hard to get to the point that I'm at now. It would take a hell of a lot more, but I could be, and that's the reality of it. That's part and parcel of it. Is that it's not something you don't get over that. You just manage it that little bit better.
Yeah, and I hope that this is like, if anybody is listening and they do feel like Sam did, like, you understand and you know you can reach out to us. We don't have the answers, but you can reach out to us. You can let us know. You can talk to us. There's people and places that want you to go there to help you. Like, there's people around you that want you to go and seek this help. There's people around you that it may not seem like it, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to do what Sam's saying there. They're trying to get you to take the actions so you don't keep making the mistakes, because the mistakes are just going to push you down and down and down. But honestly, Sam, thank you very much for like opening up about that and being as like brutally honest as you have been. Like, it's a hard thing to do, and I hope it can inspire anyone that feels terrible to be able to go and speak to someone and be able to speak open. And I think it's very brave for you, Sam, to come on a platform like this. And I know I don't have a huge following. I know I don't. But this gets put out to the world. Like, that is, whatever it is that. And I honestly, I really,
if it helps one person, then it's done its job. But
exactly.
in suffering from kind of my own poor mental health and depression and stuff like that, it's made me a better person. It has, without a doubt. Like, I can channel that, and I can take that, and I put it towards my coaching and being able to help people and understand people in similar positions. And I can only ever speak from experience. I can't ever prescribe. I can't ever diagnose. I can't ever give you the answers on the plate, but I can always facilitate. I can always provide a safe space for my clients to talk, and anyone for that matter, but my clients specifically who I speak to on a weekly basis, sometimes daily basis. It makes me better as an individual, having suffered from depression and mental health. So if you're someone who is sitting there and listening to this and going, yeah, that's me. Try to understand, and I know that you will be, but the more that you endure, but put tangible things in place that you can achieve, makes you then, it levels you up in a sadistic way, that you've had to endure such a shite time in order to be a better person. But if that's the payoff, then in my experience, I will take that.
Yeah. Yeah. So was there, like, you're talking there and you're giving advice, is there things that you did around like the May time when you released that video? Was there things that you put into place that did help you feel a little bit better, that allowed you to take the bigger steps, that allowed you to get the momentum to now, like before we jumped on and I asked you like how you doing, you were like, mate, I am absolutely, and you were like, I'm amazing, I'm absolutely fantastic. Like,
yeah,
there's a big contrast, like if people, and like, people will be able to see it, like even from us talking about it, like the way you were before, but then when you start talking about it, like people can see a contrast, they can see there's a difference there. And if people look back at your old video and then they see everything up until the point when we started talking about your mental health, they'll almost think that you're not the same person. And like that was done by you, which is something definitely to give yourself a big pat on the back for. And I'm sure it will inspire at least someone. Do you know what I mean? At least someone. But what were the steps that you took to start making yourself feel a bit better, become a bit more aware of it?
As soon as I made that video and I put it out, nothing changed. Like, I still felt the way I felt. It didn't cure me. It didn't make anything any better. Was I forming a snowball there? Most definitely. But that snowball only kind of started to roll when I started to kind of have like-minded conversations with other people who were feeling the same. That snowball continued to roll more when, I still attended counselling sessions, when, I continued to talk to my friends. That snowball was getting that little bit bigger, and so I'd eventually, from a lockdown perspective, I've eventually started to concede that maybe we were going to be there for a bit longer than what we thought. So I started to apply for kind of income support schemes and all this sort of stuff, and I started to invest that money into my own facility, I guess we'll say. I basically put up a gazebo in the driveway and built and put in like, I forget what it was called, but they were selling weight plates, just like cast iron colourful weight plates. I think maybe getting about 150 kilos worth, which for me, mate, was absolutely fine. You got a bar with that, you got a small bar with that, you got small like little dumbbell handles with that, so you could build your own weights.
Yeah.
I put a rug down, I bought a bench, I got myself some resistance bands, attached my cuffs to the resistance bands, like started to build something that I was actually quite proud of. Like I'd invested maybe 800, 900 pound into this small gazebo gym, and I'm sitting there looking at it and I'm going, yeah, this is great, but I could do with that. I'm going to put something in there. I'm going to put something there, and I'm like, before you know it, mate, I could have put a fucking extension up. Do you know what I mean? Like had my own boudoir gym in the middle of the street. But by that point, kind of once I was starting to become a bit happier with it. I was training more regularly. As restrictions started to ease slightly, we were able to see one person a day, something two like people a day, something like that. So I was like, right, okay, if I can get in 2 clients a day, I could put my fees back up to where they were, roughly where when I was doing one-on-ones. I was earning a bit more money, starting to put money away savings-wise, because I wasn't spending as much, wasn't driving the car, all these sorts of things. So, like I said, mate, that snowball, it just rolled, but it just rolled from basic things. And it's not that, again, for anyone who's listening and is struggling with their own mental health, you're not going to have one conversation and all of a sudden, that's it. You might feel a little bit better, but it's constant practice. You have to constantly be practicing it. So if you're visiting a counsellor or you've been prescribed medication and all these sorts of things, and you're starting to think to yourself, oh, well, you know what, I feel a bit better. I don't maybe need these things anymore. Consult your counsellor, consult your GP, and make a more informed decision about whether or not you don't need these pillars anymore, because it's, like I said, these things they're constant practice, and you have to maybe even concede that for the rest of your life you might have to keep doing these things. But know that that's okay. That is fine. And if that is the way that it is, it doesn't deflect your character or whatever else. You're still this person. You're still this great man or woman to be around. There's just something. It's just a wee man in here not wanting to do his job. We should give him overtime, but he doesn't want it. Do you know what I mean? So that's just the way it is.
Yeah. No, that's honestly, Sam. And I don't know if there's any more that you want to touch on, or you want to bring up, or you want to say, or mention, or anything there. But I've just noticed the time that we've been talking for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I know that you are busy, but I don't want to cut you off. Like, I don't want it to feel like I'm just. Oh, you spoke about it now, we'll just go. Like, I don't want it to seem like that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on, you want to leave the people on. I am going to ask one more question, though.
Go for it.
And I finish every podcast on this, okay?
Okay.
What do you think it takes to become or be a good man?
A lot of hard work. But yeah, it takes a lot of hard work to become a good human being, a good, productive human being. But just make sure that you are doing the things that amplify what is already good about you, because the rest is just fluff. There'll be things that are good about you that aren't good about me. There'll be things that are good about you, Tom, that aren't good about them. Do you know what I mean? But taking what's good about you and doing things that amplify them, the world is going to thank you for. So, yeah, work hard, but work smart at the same time.
I love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it. Sam, mate, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for talking so much about your journey so far. It is massively inspiring. It is heartwarming, and it's like so good to hear that, like, obviously you're still here. Like, these are the things, and like, if there is anybody out there listening, struggling, has any worries, or wants to ask Sam any more questions, I'm pretty sure he'll be happy to answer. I'll put his Instagram down below. As we said earlier on, like, if there's any triggers or anything like that in this, we apologise. We're not trying to glorify or glamorise or anything like that, these things. We want them to just be more commonly spoken about. And it feels like there's a more safe place to... Not even safe place. Like, it's just normal to talk about them, as opposed to you have to find somewhere. Like, and that's what this platform I want it to be about. So if you are listening and you're struggling with anything, or if we've triggered anything, we do apologize. Like, we can't apologise hard enough, but please do seek professional advice, medical attention, whatever it is you need. Like, please go do it properly. But Sam, mate, honestly, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. We need to get a training session soon as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, at any time. Well, we've got a leg day sorted soon, doing it.
Aye.
What do you coming in the next few weeks?
Aye.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's going to hurt. Okay. Right, Sam, I'm going to hit stop. What happens is this stops recording, and then we'll chat for a minute, and I'll get you to go. But thank you again, Sam. We all really appreciate it, and I will speak to you soon.
No problem at all, bud. My pleasure.